I made the argument that I think men have been more oppressed than women.
Okay.
I'm not really, I'm more so talking to you. I mean, do you disagree?
I disagree with your argument, but I can understand how you came to reach your argument. Like, I understand your point of view, but I don't agree with it necessarily.
So I would assume then that your position is women have been more oppressed than men.
I've discussed this at length, and I'd like us to move to a different question. I feel like our debate is kind of getting into the area of like beating a dead horse, and I feel like we've been.
Well, no, I mean, I haven't really made my case, but.
Okay, then you can make your case.
Okay, so I still would like an answer from you on this, though. If you're saying that my position is wrong, essentially, you're saying you understand how I feel, then your position surely must be that women have been and are more oppressed than men.
I have tried explaining my position, and I just...
Right, so I'm just asking for an answer.
Yes, I have tried. I have given you an answer in the past, and you have done these things. You've shown me how men face different forms of discrimination, right? And I'd like us to move to a different subject, if that's possible.
Well, I haven't been able to really lay out my own position on this.
Okay, then lay it out, and instead of asking me to answer a question, I'll listen.
Well, that's the nature of this conversation. I'm asking you questions.
I have answered a lot of questions, and I'm really getting tired, if I'm being honest.
But,
I am not at the...
So I can actually make my argument, though, but you have to at least engage. If you actually just answer the question, I'd be able to move it on a little faster.
Can we please move on to a different question?
Well, we haven't finished the conversation at hand.
Does the conversation need to have a natural end? I want to move on to a different question.
Well, I mean, this is really the last thing I want to talk about. So, I mean, it's the final thing.
Okay.
So there's not really anything I want to move it on to. Like, I want to have this conversation. We've got to wrap the show. It's already late. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I guess adding on. So.
Okay. Go ahead.
No.
You want to go ahead? All right.
Yeah. So if we can go back and forth and play this oppression Olympics until we're all dead and buried. It doesn't matter because nature has dictated that. Again, I'm going to say it, men and women are different. Therefore, men's struggles are going to be different than women's struggles. I don't even think Brian and I are saying that it's like it's inappropriate that men have been oppressed more than women in history. I think because men have the overwhelming responsibility to take leadership because of physical characteristics, because of how men act, what their natural proclivities are. Because we have more responsibility to do these things, the punishment for shirking those responsibilities or the consequences of failing in those tasks are going to be, disproportionately efficacious towards men instead of women. So I don't think I don't know what Brian's would say about this, but I'm not saying that like it's wrong that men are more oppressed by nature or have been more oppressed. I just think it's a matter of reality, and it's not going to change no matter how much we want to argue against it.
Well, I have a question to bring it back to my point. Do you think women should be subject to military conscription, the draft?
I don't know. I think that's a more complex question than I want to answer right now. I don't know.
If I told you that men are subject to forced military conscription, they are actually, I think now, are automatically registered. I don't know if it's passed.
No, once you turn 18, you're automatically.
It's now.
registered.
Is it fully passed? And because I think it had to go through. It got through the House, but it has to go to the. In any case, men are solely subjects of. They have to register for the draft, and in the event of a draft, they would be the solely subject to forced military conscription. Given that, do you think that it should be equalized between men and women?
If I'm being honest, I don't think that men should even be drafted into the military in this sense.
Okay. Well,
that's my personal opinion.
so, but the current status quo is that they are, and assuming that we'll never be able to do away with a draft, is your position that women should also be drafted?
Yeah, probably. I do agree with that, yeah.
Okay, so you're fine with women being drafted? Okay. But you don't really hear, it would be in furtherance of equality, but you typically don't hear feminists arguing that women should be subject to the draft.
When I'm arguing for feminism, I know we talk a lot about equality. I think it's more of a question of equity. Because like you're describing, I agree with you that the discrimination that men and women experience is different. Like I agree with you on that. And I think in order to remedy that, equality is not the solution, it's equity. And it's more specific, nuanced solutions.
What do you mean by equity?
Equity, it's essentially just accounting for the fact that people, based on various identity factors, have different experiences, right? Like you face discrimination in a way that I don't, right? Mm-hmm. We could agree on that, right? So that way, in order for the playing field to be like more leveled, and I hate using that term, the solutions are going to be different. Like I think you agree with that, don't you?
Wait, so then are you making an equity argument against the draft?
Well, okay,
not
so
necessarily,
I guess my understanding of equity is, it sounds like what you're saying is my understanding of equality, where everyone has the same starting point. And what you do, how far you get is dependent upon what you do. And my understanding of equity is that people's starting position will be different.
Yes.
So that everybody will end up at the same place. Essentially it's equality of outcome versus equality of opportunity. Equality of outcome being equity and equality of opportunity being equality.
So what I mean, when it comes to military conscription, what would be equity? The current status quo?
I think it would also have to address the fact that men have been subjected to being drafted, and like you're saying, facing forms of discrimination that are different. Yeah. That is a form. Yeah. That's just an experience that men have had that women have had.
I mean, are men stronger?
Finish your statement.
The solution would need to take that into account, is what I'm saying.
So you're saying it should be women would then be overrepresented?
No, not necessarily. If I'm being honest, I'm a 21-year-old college student. I do not have the answer to this question. I do not. I don't truly think there is a right or wrong answer. I think it depends on your perspective.
There's not a right or wrong answer.
In my view, I do not have a singular answer to this question right now. I do not.
But I mean, if you're a feminist and you believe in equality, wouldn't it occur to you that the equal thing would be both men and women should be subject to forced military conscription in the event of a draft?
I'm not sure. I would need more time to think about this, if I'm being honest.
But what is there to? I don't understand what there is.
If you hold like an equality of outcome as like this is something we should strive for. Mm-hmm. So in the event of a draft, the outcome would be people, regardless of sex, being forced to be put into the military. Now, if we include sex into that argument, then to achieve equality of outcome, an equal amount of men and an equal amount of women would have to be forced to join the military. So you would be for that because you hold the value that equality of outcome should be pursued.
I think you guys raise interesting points. I would need more information, more time to process, and like just research on my own in order to form a singular answer myself. Mm. And I'm sorry if that's not satisfying to you guys.
No.
I guess I'm just confused. I mean, okay. It would occur to me that if feminism is about equality, and here's a way in which men and women are not equal, and it could be legislated fairly simply to just say women get the same treatment as men and would be subject to forced military conscription in the event of a draft. They would have to register for the draft the same way men do. They would face the same consequences that men do when they don't register for the selective service. I don't understand how, as a feminist and someone who's in favor of equality, your knee-jerk reaction isn't to just say, yes, that would be equality. I'm in favor of equality.
I think that women, and I said earlier that I think that, yes, this is an issue that needs to be remedied. It probably is including that in some sense, but I don't have an answer in the fact that like the equity versus equality distinction. I would need more time in order to form that opinion.
See, so I mean,
I feel like I keep repeating myself, and I feel like this isn't going anywhere, if I'm being honest.
I have a quick question, if I'm allowed to talk about
Well,
that.
I guess I'm trying to walk you to,
Yeah.
you believe in equality. You're a feminist.
Yeah.
How would it not be equality for both men and women to be both equally subject to forced military conscription in the event of a draft? Are you saying that would not be equality?
I'm saying that it's
could you just agree that it would be an equal outcome? If a draft were to happen, and if we were talking about equality among the sexes, would it not be just take out all of the social political charge that comes with it? Would it just not be equal in the outcome if men and women both got military conscription?
It would be equal in the outcome.
Okay,
but
there you go.
Can't remove the social charge. It's not how the world works.
I'm sorry, the social what?
You can't. You're
Like
asking me to remove the layers of the.
What layers?
I don't want to get into this right
Do you
now.
think, well, I mean, when it comes to, do you think that women should be barred from volunteering for the military?
No, I never said that.
I'm not saying you did.
Do you want to share?
I'm not saying that you did, but if you're fine with women being in the volunteer military, then why would you not also be fine with women being forced into, like if there's a draft for forced military conscription? Like, you don't think they should be barred from volunteering from the military, correct?
My earlier point was that I don't think that anyone should be forced to do that, and I'm
Okay,
just
but
gonna leave it at
but
that.
that's not the current
I know it's
system.
not, but I don't.
Okay, so assuming
Personally,
in
I
a
don't think
world,
it's fair to
assuming
force anyone to do that.
right, but in a world where war happens and there's military conflicts, assuming in a world where you could never get rid of the draft, what is your prescription there?
I have
We could always pick it up another
If
day.
you believe in equality,
shit.
men and women should both be drafted.
Yeah.
Women can always be in supportive roles. They can do logging positions, BFM positions, whatever. If you're a man, you can be there on the front lines. It doesn't have to be the same job. You can still have equality within being drafted, men
See,
and women.
So yes, it is possible.
The issue is people love talking about let's find equality of outcome. But then when it comes to issues like this, where it's obvious that men should be the ones fighting because they are different than women.
So you guys are stronger. So you guys should be the ones getting drafted.
So when
then
it comes to
what's the
when it
argument
comes
for?
to male roles in this place, when it benefits women, you're all for it.
What?
But when other effects occur, you're all against it.
Why
It
would
doesn't
that
make
mean
sense.
that we're all for it? How does
No,
that mean
when
that
you
we're all
sit there
for
and
it?
you say feminism, first off, feminism is not for equality at all. Feminism is putting women ahead of men. That's what it is.
That's what it came up as, but that's not what it should
That's
be.
how
Doesn't
it.
mean what it
That's
should
how
be.
it always started.
No.
If you
Well,
want
what
real
it
equality,
started and
both
what it
should be.
Okay,
is
well, if
different.
it
I
was-
understand what it is.
If it was truly about equality, then this should be answered in an instant. Yes, women should be drafted because
I
then
said
it would be
yes.
okay.
I said
that's fair.
yes.
Okay, yes, but most feminists don't like to say that because all of a sudden it brings up all of these issues. Like, okay, well, it just feels wrong because obviously,
It
well,
feels wrong. It felt wrong for men to think that we could possibly be in a
I
have
don't
the same role in a war. Like we're not
I agree.
strong
I
enough in that
agree.
sense.
But
That works
again, it
for
comes
us if we
well.
want to get drafted. But
Yeah,
not.
well, that goes to my worldview that men and women are intrinsically different. Therefore, they will have intrinsically different experiences. They will have intrinsically different downsides to their life as a man, woman. Yeah.
but-
So it doesn't matter. No matter how hard we try to work against that, we will always have biology, being a man or a woman, that will dictate what our experience will be. So it doesn't matter. We can try to make that outcome equal. It's impossible.
But she also did make a good point about there still being roles
Yeah.
within
I don't believe in the whole feminist bullshit, but I do believe if men are going to be drafted, women should be drafted. Again, separate roles. Men can be on the front lines. Women should be supporting the men. We shouldn't just let them all.
like, oh, you guys go figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, see, here's where I even differ there. For the actual pure sake of pure, unadulterated equality, women should also be
Put them on the front
put
lines.
on the front
Do
lines
it
because
if they're
that's-
physically able to do it,
that
but
would
apparently
be-
we haven't
that
been
would-
physically
that
able
would
to
be equality.
equally.
That would be
Well, no,
equality.
that's equality of outcome because an equal amount of women are getting slaughtered as an equal amount of men. So
it's getting
the outcome is
contradictory.
equal. Well, that's what we're talking about. We want equality. If equality is our ultimate goal, then we should pursue equality in all things. Therefore, we need to pursue equality in how many people die in war.
I guess.
Brian, I'll be on
See,
the
it doesn't
front
make any
lines. Give me a
sense.
sniper.
No.
Therefore, feminism doesn't make sense. Why are we
It says it
pursuing
makes
that?
sense, but their
There we go.
goal-
Okay,
their
makes
goal-
sense.
So, but this is the
how the
criticism.
concept of their goal and
This
what
is
it turned
the-
into doesn't make sense.
This
to
is
you
the
guys.
criticism of feminism.
Yes.
Is that
Exactly.
Is that
Yeah, I
it's
know
not
that.
it's
We're
not
well
about
aware.
okay. Feminism is not about equality. It's about securing benefits for women. If a form of equality in some conceivable way comes at the detriment of women, and for example, it would be equality for both men and women to be drafted, but it would conceivably come as a new detriment to women.
It's like pulling teeth.
Feminists will not fight for said equality, even though it is equality. So of course, feminism is not an equality movement.
All right.
It's, if I can be the most charitable, it's a women's advocacy movement. Nothing wrong with women's advocacy, but let's not sit here and
not
lie and
blur
say
the
that
lines
it's,
that
it's
could be-
equality.
I
It's not
guess.
about equality. It never has been.
Okay.
Otherwise, they would be advocating for all sorts of things that would conceivably come at the detriment and to the detriment of women, but they don't.
I think we're both equally skewed, and this is never gonna like really.
Anyways, I mean, I'm just surprised that the feminist here who's taken feminist classes just, I mean, it's,
She's also fresh and learning these
she's
things.
21.
Yeah. All right.
She's an adult.
We've been going at this for hours. I'm tired. I think that we have had very different experiences that have shaped different viewpoints. I've explained my position. You guys have explained yours. I don't think a resolution is going to be reached. and I
What
think
would
that's
our
fine.
experiences? I haven't been drafted for war.
I think
I'm not
you
sure
explained
what.
your perspective.
But how would
Okay.
our lived experiences have anything to do with what is a hypothetical scenario where there's a draft? Granted, there are actually tangible things, like I had to register for the Selective Service and able to get the right to vote. You don't. If I didn't register for the Selective Service, I would face all sorts of penalties. I would be barred from certain federal jobs. There's fines. I could be prosecuted. What else? There's also you can't get certain student loans, federal student loans, for example. You can't get certain government jobs. So I'm confused why our lived experiences have anything to do with you being able to acknowledge that women, like, I'm just confused. As a feminist, you seem to be in favor of equality. Why can't you just say women should be subject to the draft the same way men are?
I think that you want to get an answer out of me. That's the answer that you want to hear, and I don't think we're going to reach a
No,
resolution.
I think we just want logic to be applied
Okay.
to this specific scenario.
Okay.
And it's because we're engaging with a logical conclusion that if feminism is really truly about equality, then in the most extreme cases, it should still be about equality. We've proven that it's not, because anytime we've had this conversation multiple times with many women, anytime we bring up this instance, it's like pulling teeth. You cannot get people to be logical about this. You can't get feminists to be logical about this because it's the most extreme example of equality, and they will not agree that it should be equal because they will try to jump through all these hula hoops and
Equity, yeah.
Yeah, it's all this crazy.
Not many objections have been coming even
acrobatics
now.
and it's oh my
This
gosh,
table.
it's so exhausting because all we want to do just follow the logical trail,
'Cause
and
have
it's
we been
impossible to
illogical?
do
We've
so. Well, I mean, you agreed to the logic that if we really wanted to be free, then or equal, then
Are you willing to, if I ask you the question, are you willing to concede that feminism is not about equality?
I think that feminism is about equity, and I think I mentioned that earlier.
I'm a little confused what the difference between equity.
Equity
And
takes
equality.
into account the fact that due to different identity factors, people have different experiences.
So what would
I've said that
preclude,
earlier.
women actually, I think, make excellent snipers. What would preclude a woman from being drafted to be a sniper?
I would love that.
I am not familiar enough with the military to engage in this discussion, and we're not going to reach a resolution. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I mean, it's a little shifting goalpost, though. So, I mean, couldn't we just return this equity thing? I mean, you mentioned the wage gap. I mean, wouldn't there be perhaps equitable reasons for why that exists, even though it's been debunked on the show?
I have explained my point of view. You've explained yours.
Can I
We're
ask you,
not gonna
okay, so if a
reach a
corporation
resolution.
said,
This
for-
isn't productive.
can I ask you a question? So if a corporation said, for equity reasons, we've determined that men should be paid more than women for equity reasons, would you think that that's fair?
No, personally not, but we're not going to
Okay.
reach a resolution. I don't think we.
But it is fair to
I don't
say,
think we
it is
see
fair
eye
to
eye on this,
say.
and that's okay. I'm fine with that. Can you please be fine with that too? That we're just not going to see eye to. I think.
No.
But why
Okay,
is it
well,
equity
it's not-
only to the benefit of women?
Equity should be to the benefit. It considers
not.
everyone, but I have told you guys that I am tired. I don't think we're going to reach a resolution.
We understand, but like it's like you're using your physical exhaustion to not engage with a logical argument.